Selena. It's a bad baby. Oak Cliff girl. Can't make you change my world. Damn, you're so fine, girl. Oak Cliff girl. Put them wheels on and rule.
Welcome to Selena's Couch, where you are welcome to be free to be yourself. So you can lay your head on my couch, on my pillows.
It's all good, we can do whatever we want to do now. I'm in my bag right now, and I got a feeling, babe, yeah. You're gonna be my number one lover. Spending the night making love to each other, with the lights on top of the covers. Just me and you, babe. And I feel like you're my
Love you to Reese's Pieces.
Get you a word. Nana nana boo boo.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today. I have a wonderful guest, guys, that I would love to share with you. I met her at a women's conference in Dallas, Texas. Her testimony was awesome. This is catered to everybody, but especially to women. I would like to introduce you to Lynn Love, the
Hello.
3 L's. Hey, that kind of reminds me of mine because I got 3 Selenas. So hey, I'll tell you, we already got something coming. You got the 3 L's and I got the 3 S's. So thank you for joining me, Lori. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
you.
much for having me tonight.
Yes. Well, first, Lori, I want you to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, how you kind of grew up, where you from. Give us a background story.
Woo, let me give y'all the short version. So, born and raised Memphis, Tennessee. Grew up in the Whitehaven / South Memphis area.
All
I'm
right.
a PK. So, those
Okay.
of you all who don't know what a PK is, I'm a preacher's kid. My dad is a pastor.
Oh,
I'm a
Lord.
baby
Uh-huh.
of 4. So I'm the youngest. I have one older sister. We're about 10 years apart. She's my bestie. And I have
Okay.
2 brothers in between. And so went to high school there, public school, went to Jackson State University, go Tigers,
Okay.
HBCU. I had a full academic scholarship to Jackson State. And I've been at FedEx for the past 24 and a half years. So that's just a little bit
Wow.
about me.
Just a little bit about you. Okay, well, thank you for giving us that little brief. And they always say you gotta watch them PK kids. I mean, look, I got nephew and nieces that are PK, so hey, I done seen it all. But yeah, I want you to go back to you being a PK kid and how you grew up in the church and tell me a little bit about that experience growing up in the church and your father's a bishop and people are judging you and really you have to be very I would say cautious of how you live in front of people.
Yeah, and still do because my parents are very famous in the Memphis area.
Okay.
If you've ever seen they call them the Black Singing Soul for Santa. My parents played Santa and Mrs. Claus for like 27 years there in Memphis. They
Okay.
used to be at the mall for about 20 years, and now they do
Uh-huh.
daycares in schools and companies, Christmas parties. So they're very popular in the Memphis area, and so it was definitely a challenge to say the
Mhm.
least being a PK because there's so much pressure. People want you to be this holier than thou, which is why I love expressing even now in my mid 40s that I'm half holy, half hood. Take it how
I
you
know
want.
that's right.
I like to keep it real. But it also has some challenges just because of I had a baby out of wedlock
Okay.
early on. Well, I won't say I had a baby. I got pregnant out of wedlock. And then I moved that wedding date up so I wasn't, showing at the wedding but still. So yeah, I have 2 sons. They are grown. They're 22 and 23. Very
Mhm.
proud of both of my sons. And I have a grandbaby.
Oh,
She'll be 2 next
wow.
month. So
Okay.
yes.
Look, you got kids. You don't even look like a grandmother. I'm just really shocked that you're even a grandmother. But when you were, growing up and you ended up, getting pregnant before marriage, that's a big no,
Yes.
especially in the church, and especially as a PK kid. Did you ever feel embarrassed, or did people kind of ridicule you, or how
Well,
was that experience?
mine came a little bit later. So by the time I got pregnant, I had graduated from college from Jackson State. So you're talking about 2000 is 2001 is when I got pregnant. And so I was engaged, but the wedding was like maybe several months down the line.
Mhm.
So that was one of the reasons I moved the wedding from it being in October, because my son was due in November. I moved it up to June. So I was probably about 4 months pregnant at the wedding, but it was to not ridicule and shame my dad and my mom
Mhm.
because of all the things that they taught us, growing up. And so, me, because I was definitely the definition of why they say you got to watch them PKs, because
Uh-huh.
I was very promiscuous growing up. And
Really?
yes, I always had a boyfriend, or three or four or five. Um,
Wow.
Having sex at an early age, sneaking. And one thing, because when I started my mentoring program that I had back in Memphis, I would tell the parents, you don't know what your daughter doing, because
Exactly.
I'm a student. I made straight A's. I was involved in sports. I was volleyball captain in high school. I was on the honor roll. I was in the math club. I could do calculus. And my parents never suspected I call it the Gemini me, because I'm a Gemini. So they never suspected.
Oh Lord.
And
Oh.
I had this whole other lifestyle that
Mhm.
that I had, and I knew my parents' schedule. That's how smart I was. My dad worked swing shift. My mama went to bed early. She got up early to go to work. So I knew how to, invite the guys over, skip this step because it squeaked, go out the back door, don't park on, it was all that stuff that I was doing as a teenager, because
Uh-huh.
it's just, I wanted attention and I was getting it the wrong way.
So, okay, besides you wanting attention, what made you want to have sex so early? Like what was that like for you to have sex so early like that?
Well, sex was introduced to me, I would say, against my will. So I was
Okay.
molested at an early age by, I would say, a family member,
Oh
and
wow.
because we were so involved in church, we would go to these Baptist conventions every
Hmm.
summer. So I do remember the summer before I was about to turn 13. There was a little boy I liked in church, like most
Hmm.
people do.
Right.
But he ended up raping me on that church trip, and so that just kind of started planting the seeds of I guess I'm just wondering what this is about. And because other people, and I'm not gonna put people on blast, but I would just say other adults, preachers, pastors, deacons,
Hmm.
teachers, coaches, they gave me so much attention, unwanted attention, till I just became used to it. And I just started down that line of being promiscuous and having sex at an early age.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So the seed was planted and it grew, right?
Yes.
And with you being hypersexual at a very young age, um, did you ever have, even with that, did you ever have like a lot of low self-esteem? Did you still think, even though you got all the attention, you still thought that you still wasn't beautiful, or like,
No, I think I was just the opposite. I was Lynn Love, aka Triple L, cute, look, cute in the face, small in the waist.
I know.
Like, I would say I was cocky, but my self confidence was very high.
Hmm.
I'm a daddy's girl, so
Okay.
man, my dad would just he still blows my head up, and I try to stay humble about it, but he always told me, "You're the most beautiful girl in the world."
Mm.
And he jokes, you look just like your mama, and if you want my daughter, I'll marry you just like your mom. Things like that. He would joke
Mhm.
about it. So my confidence was really high because of I had him all my life.
Did your parents ever, I know you said with them being in the church and being well known, did they live the example in front of you
Yes.
that you just decided, hey, I want to go down this road, even though.
I love the fact that my parents are so real. Now,
Mhm.
I will say, now looking back, my mom, and she still is a little bougie. But you know, she's beautiful on the inside and out. The life that she has lived in front of me for the past 46 years is the life that I would say my family and I, I'll put it like this. My family and I joke that my mom is next to Jesus because that's just the life that she lives. Now, my daddy is kind of like where I get mine from.
Okay.
You know, which is why I think I have this thing where I don't really judge pastors and preachers because I know God can use anybody.
Yeah.
Despite their background. And so,
Right.
you know, my dad had his own things that he was doing that wasn't good, wasn't holy, wasn't Christian thing to do or whatever, being married. And he's admitted to that. It's no secret.
Right.
But outside of that, man, my parents, when I say a godly couple that, you know, showed me this is what love is, this is how marriage should be. They showed me that. I just wasn't paying attention, which is why I've been divorced twice.
Oh, wow. So after, you know, you were in college, you ended up being engaged and having a wedding, and you had your 2 kids. So now you have finished college, you're a married woman, and you're raising 2 children. Take me to that point where you are a mother now and a wife. How is that journey?
Now, those 10 years
Uh-huh.
was the reason that I eventually started my mentoring program because I went through hell and high water. Vaguely remember good times, but I will say this: my first husband, my son's dad, I met him in college. He was fine. He was a cute dog. You know, the sex was good. You know, all the stuff I was looking for in my 20s when I was young. And so I thought I was somebody because he left. He was married or separated. He had 3 babies in Pampers when I met him, which was 3 red flags. But of course, you know, when you're 21, 22, I wasn't thinking about that type of stuff. I was a senior in college, ready to graduate and come back home and stay with my mom and dad. But I fell in love with him. And, you know, he proposed. I said yes. But that married life, it was probably one of the trying decades of my life. I felt like I was a married single mom because he was always working. I was mostly at home taking care of the kids outside of me having a job. And so it became an abusive relationship, financially abusive, physically abusive, emotionally abusive. There was just a lot of things that was said. And I'm a fighter. So
I know that's right.
I'm going to try to knock your head off your body. I've
I
learned, you
know
know,
you're
not to do
right.
that now, but the 20-year-old me, the 25-year-old me was a fighter. And I learned going through therapy that I was fighting the stuff that happened to me in my childhood, you know. And so because I was the baby of the family, you know, like I was saying in when I spoke at the women's ministry, I was told what to do. And because people bossed me around when I was little and did things to me I didn't like, I grew up saying nobody would ever boss me. And so this man want to tell me something, I'm going to challenge everything you say. And if I don't like it, I'm going to slap you. And so, you know, so the relationship was like that. It was, you know, like I said, mentally, financially, emotionally, it was just abusive. I mean, that was some good times because of course I got pregnant 3 times in a row. But you know, outside of that, I stayed married for 9 years, and I divorced when my sons were 5 and 6, and I started the single parenting life.
So, even though your dad was a great man and he didn't physically abuse your mom, in some ways, you kind of married your dad, right? In some ways,
Not
because
necessarily. No, this guy was totally different than my dad. My dad's very loving. He's very touchy-feely, love to hug people, love to talk, don't meet a stranger. But in the other essence, my dad was we call him the HNIC of the family. Whatever daddy said goes. And my mom, she was more soft-spoken. You know, this is back in the 70s and 80s. She was where they felt their place was, which was women was to be seen and not heard. But one thing I didn't know about my mom during that time is my mom was a prayer warrior. And so it was times that she was quiet, that she was praying.
Mm.
She knew how to tackle whatever differences they had in the bedroom instead of in public. Whereas me,
Okay.
I didn't learn this from my mom. I just learned this from my anger. Is no, I'm
Mhm.
gonna shut you down right now.
Right.
And
You,
since
you
then, of course, I've had to grow and not learn to do that, in my
you just
years.
went hood,
Yeah, that's how I
Lord.
used to be.
You just went hood. Guys, if you would love to bless Miss Lori monetarily, her cash app is Lori Lynn Love, and this is her name, Lori Lynn Love. I hope you see it in the subtitle, and that is her cash app. So if you have, would love to bless her, this is her cash app, and bless my sister. Okay. We appreciate her for coming and gracing us with our presence and telling her story. So, and this is something I love to do, Lori. I love to talk to people. I love to get insight on their lives. You know what I'm saying? That's just something
Yeah,
that I enjoy doing. And the reason why I brought that up about your dad, because sometimes we don't exactly marry our father, but there's some similarities. And I know you were saying something about, even though your dad was a good man, he kind of had some issues with infidelity. So that's
yeah,
kind of what I was comparing that to on that part.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I do think that there's a such thing as generational curses. I
Right.
do believe that, the Bible talks about it, how,
Exactly.
because of the lifestyle David had with Bathsheba, his
Hmm.
sons suffered it by having sex with their sister, even though it was a half
Exactly.
sister. So I do believe in generational curses. I do believe that God would allow our parents to see their children suffer because of things that they've done. And
Hmm.
so from that standpoint, I feel like that was part of, my journey, was the
Hmm.
maybe because of the sins of my parents. And I don't know everything that they've done, but I've heard, bits and pieces of the story. And so I do believe that that's part of it.
Okay. Now there was a situation you touched on at the conference that I went to. Now you said you had two sons, but
Mhm.
you also said that you had three children. I'm
I was
assuming
pregnant
by
3 times.
him. Uh-huh.
Yes.
So you were pregnant. So what happened to that other pregnancy?
So I got pregnant. So my first son, he's born November 2001.
Hmm.
And keep in mind, I had just started my job, my career at FedEx in June of 2000. Like literally 2 weeks after I graduated from Jackson State, I'm in my career, I'm in my profession. And so I got married June of 2001, had my son November of 2001.
Okay.
Got pregnant while I was out on maternity leave with him. And so at my 2.5, my son was 2.5 months, got pregnant with the second one. I
Hmm.
told y'all, back then I love sex. So I wasn't really trying to wait no 6 weeks.
Hey, you can be holy and love sex and marriage, hey.
Yeah, and so had my second son
Uh-huh.
October of 2022. Matter of fact, his birthday is next week. He'll be 22 years old.
Okay.
And when he was 6 months old, and I think I have a 17-month-old, I have a 6-month-old, and I find
Mhm.
out I'm pregnant again. But by this time, I'm on birth control. Now, I will say,
Wow.
all through my college years, I wasn't on birth control, really didn't believe in it. And I honestly thought I couldn't have kids because I knew I was out there, not always protected, and I never got pregnant. I had girlfriends
Mm.
and best friends who had had abortions in their teenage years because they kept getting pregnant, but it never had happened to me.
Mhm.
And so after being on birth control for several months, I found out I was pregnant again. And I remember the day because I had gone to the doctor because I wasn't feeling good. And my doctor called me while I was working, said, at this time I was Lori Young. She said, "You're pregnant." And I was like, "That's impossible. I have two
Wow.
babies in Pampers." And so
Uh-huh.
she was like, "Yes, ma'am." And so I called my husband at the time, and his response was, "I'm gonna call you back."
Mm.
And I was like, "Okay, well, we can talk about this when I get home." This was Mother's Day weekend.
Mhm.
And so I'm steady calling, like, "We got to talk about this." And he literally told me, "I don't want no more kids with you."
Oh my
And
God.
I was like, "Wait a minute. I'm not your girlfriend. I'm not some side chick. I'm your
You're
wife."
right, right.
And of course, by this time, like I said, when I met him, he had 3 kids in Pampers. So by this time, I'm adding 2 to the bunch. So now we have 5 kids. We have literally a 3-year-old. His other two was like 3, 2, and 2. And then I had a 1-year-old and a 6-month-old. So all of them under the age of 4. And so he came to me and he was like, well, if you have that other child, I'm leaving you. Now at this time, I'm 24 years old with 2 babies. Just starting my career. I wasn't making a lot of money, back then, because daycare, you put 2 babies in daycare, that was a couple, grand a month for all that. And I didn't know what to do, but I did talk to my mom and my dad about it. My dad said, you have this baby and we're going to help you take care of it. My mom said, whatever decision you make, I support you. I wanted to have my baby, but at the same time, I wanted to save my marriage. And so in my mind, it was like, what do I do? I don't want him to leave me. I mean, I'm thinking, okay, well, if I have an abortion with this one, then maybe I'll get pregnant, years from now and we can have another one. But I only had that short window to decide. And he was like, you need to have an abortion. And so we didn't have the money to have an abortion. I borrowed the money from an aunt who's passed away now. And I literally asked him at the time, well, what's going to happen if I get pregnant again? And he said, we'll find some more money. So he let me know early on. And this was in 2004. So we had only been married less than 3 years. And so his character, just from that, showed me who he was. And so I started putting together plan B, which was go back to school, get my master's degree, because God had already showed me you're not going to be with him. And so, even the day I remember going to the abortion clinic, my best friend took me. He didn't even want to take me. And I just remember it was a horrible experience. I'll just say that it is the biggest regret I have ever had in my life. I would tell anybody that. But I just remember laying on that counter, and I remember, everything that happened there, going back home, being sick, bleeding blood clots the size of golf balls, being in pain for days, and him just throwing medication at me, wouldn't come there and take care of me. I had to end up dropping off my kids to my aunt's house because I couldn't see after them for a couple of days. But he was very mean and ugly about the situation.
So it's like he hated you in some way.
Yeah. I don't know if he hated me or he hated the fact that this would be number 6 for him. But the ironic story is, after I left him, he ended up having another baby by the wife after me. So that, and then that, of course, brought a whole bunch of other trauma to me, because I battled with that abortion for years. I got depressed about it. I would have dreams about, this baby saying, "Mama, please don't kill me." I would see the screen of the ultrasound and her, and I thought it was a little girl because I always wanted a little girl. And so it's the biggest regrets that I've had in my life.
Wow. Do you think about that baby every day?
Not every day. Having my little granddaughter, I literally just shared a post a couple of days ago that came up in my memory from 13 years ago, where I said, God, and this was like, I was probably 33, 34 at the time, and I wanted to have more children. And, I was like, God, I know that you forgive me for what happened. And back then I really was like, maybe one day you're going to bless me with a little girl that probably was the one that I ended up getting rid of. But, now I don't think about it as much. My granddaughter, she's a blessing from God. And I just like, you know what? This was my prayer. This was the little girl that I prayed for.
Wow. So that was one of your biggest regrets, losing your child. Well, I would say, letting your child be taken from you. It was a decision you made. It was, it was something that you regret. That's very hard to deal with, I would think, being in that position, knowing that it could have been a little girl. It could have been, a child that you had dreamed about, and you gave it up because you wanted to save your marriage. Did you ever have any hate for him after doing that?
Oh, yes. I resented him. I didn't respect him as a man anymore. And then the fact that, there was other things going on of him being very disrespectful to me in front of my parents. And so, it was just an unfortunate situation where I lost respect for him.
Mhm.
I literally had tunnel vision after that and was like, let me get this second degree. Let me make my money because in a few years I'm going to be out the door. And then the other challenging part of having that abortion is, you know, as close as me and my dad were and are now, it didn't sit well with my dad.
Right.
You know, my mom, she was just like, and then the other thing was my gynecologist, she was like, well, Lori, to be honest with you, your body has gone through a lot, you know, being pregnant 3 times, you know, over the past 3 years. And so she was like, you know, of course, whatever decision that you make, I support you. But my dad was like, I can't believe you did that. And he stopped talking to me for about a year. And that was heartbreaking to go from being a daddy's girl, talking to him all the time, having his support, to him being upset with me because I chose a man over what God ordained.
So at the time when that was going on and your dad stopped talking to you, how was your Christmas and your Thanksgiving? Could you go over
Oh,
there to your family
you know,
house?
ironically, my sons were going to daycare literally 2 houses down from my parents' house. So my mom kept my oldest son for first year of his life. And then by the time I had my second son, I put him in daycare, put both of them in daycare when he was 6 weeks old. And so, you know, I would pick up my sons from daycare. I would go to my parents' house because it was like literally right across the street. And my dad had nothing to say to me. He would stay in his room. He would stay in his office. And I would just tell my boys, I was like, go back there and say hi to grandpa. My mom, you know, of course, still loved on me and everything, but it was very difficult. You know, birthdays, I remember having events in my house for the kids or just for the holidays. And my dad was sitting in his car outside in the driveway and he would not come in. You know,
Wow.
yeah, it was very hurtful. But as a mother now, I can understand. I can understand his why. I didn't like it. You know, I thought it was to the extreme, but I definitely, when my son came to me and said, Mom, you know, his fiance or whatever, his girlfriend, his wife was pregnant, you know, I was like, hey, God bless you guys. I'm looking forward to it, you know. And if he had said, yeah, Mom, we decided not to keep the baby, I would have been pissed off mad. You know, but it's like, I feel like a baby is a gift from God, however it gets here.
Right.
And you don't ever know what that child's going to be. So, yeah.
Did
So
you
that
ever
was
forgive?
challenging.
Did you ever forgive yourself for that
Whew. It's still a
decision?
work in progress.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still a work in progress because it's still that regret of,
Right.
I look at my sons and they are some amazing boys. Of course, every child has their flaws, you know.
Right.
My sons make me want to put them in a DDT position sometimes.
A chokehold.
Yes, you know, but overall, there are some good kids, and I do often wonder, like, man, what would that last one would have been? He probably would have
Yeah.
been amazing, like his mama.
Lord, you're a mess. So after, you still are in the process of forgiving yourself. It's extremely hard for you to do that. When was it when your father actually forgave you and y'all
Like I
started
said,
talking again?
yeah, that lasted maybe like a little under a year, and then
Mhm.
you know, my dad. It's so funny. And that's where I think I get it from. You know, my dad could beat the hell out of us and want to talk to you in 3 minutes.
Oh,
And
Lord.
And I'm like, it's like if I'm mad at you, I'm mad for a minute. Then it's like, okay, life is too short. We're gonna talk about this and move on and be happy.
Right.
So that was probably, you know, the longest that my dad has ever gone without having a conversation. It's never happened again about anything. But my dad it's just how he is. He's you know, whoop you and then I'm ready to have a conversation with. Now my mother, she can just not say anything and you feel the wrath of God.
Right.
You know, I would beg my mama, like, just go ahead and whoop me because I just want you to say something to me. But she would give you the silent treatment for days. And you
Yeah,
would just be
yeah.
like, oh my God. But yeah, my dad, he was just, you know, after those few months, and I get it was hard, he started coming back around, you know.
Wow. Okay. So your dad forgave you. So eventually you're going to have to forgive yourself. And you already know
Yeah.
that. You
Yes.
already know that. This was something that happened. And you know, we all make stupid decisions. We all make decisions that we can't take back. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So that's everybody in the whole wide world. So
definitely.
that's something that hopefully eventually you'll get to that point that you will forgive yourself. Now you have decided I'm leaving that low down scoundrel and I'm moving on. I'm getting my master's. I'm going to start making some money and being able to take care of myself. After that happens, what happens after you decide I'm going to leave him and I'm going to, you know, take care of myself and my children? What happens after that?
I started this journey of moving.
Mhm.
I've moved approximately 15 times over the past 20 years. I moved a lot. Um, what I realize now is what happened then is I started to process my trauma and take my trauma out on my sons in raising them. Uh,
Mm.
it's probably the next biggest regret that I've had. Even though I gave my sons everything, which was, you know, how we do. We try to give our kids things that we didn't have growing up, and so they always had
Right.
the best of everything. But by the same token, I was a very strict mom. Um, I beat the hell out of them. I did for
Oh my
things
God.
that didn't warrant some of the whooping
Mhm.
they got. My dad was a military man as well, and so he had, you know, different kind of things he would do to punish us. You know, if, I remember because I'm a talker, so I would go to school, and if the teacher put Lori talks too much on my report card, Daddy would put duct tape on my mouth, and I went to school with duct tape, and you had to sit there looking stupid with
Mhm.
duct tape for the whole day. You know, so he had these little things that he would do, and so I started implementing the punishments that my dad did. Like we had inspections in our house because my dad was military. And so, which is
Mhm.
probably one of the reasons I have OCD really, really bad now. And so, during those years of me being a single mom, I was still trying to be an involved parent, still keeping my kids in sports. They did football, they did
Mhm.
dance academies, they were involved heavily in church, probably too
Mhm.
much. Just trying to keep our lives busy, but I hadn't processed or dealt with my trauma from my childhood, and so I was
Mhm.
angry that here I am, a single mom, been married, been cheated on, you know,
Mhm.
struggling with all the things that I dealt with in that marriage. Why did it happen? And then the financial repercussions that came from that, as far as I had to file bankruptcy, my house
Mhm.
went into foreclosure, I lost 2 vehicles, and then just trying to get myself together and then still be professional at work every
Mhm.
day. And so it was very challenging those years that I was a single mom.
So you had a lot of anger, and would you say you also took that out on your children?
Yes,
That anger. Did
I
those
did.
children? Oh, let me ask you this: did those children remind you of your husband? Did they look like him to the point to
Yes,
where it angered you?
yes. My
Mhm.
my youngest son, he looks just like his dad. My
Right.
oldest one acts just like his dad to a degree.
Hmm.
And I have to be careful even saying that because he has, you know, some of his, like he walks like his dad. Uh, and then just some of his ways, it's a reminder. I'm not going to say he acts like him, but it is a reminder. It's like, it reminds me of his dad. And so I didn't know back then that those were things that I shouldn't have said to my sons because their father was absent in their life. You know, once I divorced him, he disappeared. Um, and so he was the kind of dad that I'm gonna pick you up. I'll be there on Friday, you know, and they would be sitting there waiting. It was that type of thing, and I dealt with it as long as I could. You know, my oldest son would have anxiety attacks and have asthma attacks, trying to just get his dad on the phone because he was very close to his father. My youngest son wasn't at all because he was just 5 when I left him. But my oldest son, he was a daddy's boy, and so it was challenging trying to raise them, put them in counseling when I started seeing red flags by the time they got 9 and 10 years old. Um, and so just dealing with all of that and still in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about why did he have to touch me? And why does this teacher got me in this closet at school? And why does this deacon want to take me out and I'm 16 and he in his 40s? Like I'm battling all this stuff subconsciously. And so I'm angry because I feel like I'm a target. you know. And so it's just, and then I didn't really have people that I could share that with. Because I was, you know, a lot of my girlfriends and best friends back then, they wasn't sexually active. And so I kept my stuff on the hush hush, you know, and so it was very challenging. My sister, like I said, we're 10 years apart. So she was grown and gone by the time I hit 4th, 5th grade. And so, yeah, it was just a very struggling time trying to raise my boys and still be a fun mom. Now, they friends thought I was fun, but after friends left, it was like, get in there, get that stuff up, do them dishes, go wash your clothes, make your bed, don't leave that bed up. And I was just fussing all the time. All the time I was fussing. Yeah.
When did you realize that you were really angry? Because some people don't realize that while they're dealing with their kids, because they have a lot of unchecked trauma. When did you realize that?
I would probably say it was too late. My boys were probably 15 and 16. And I realized, man, I'm doing the same stuff that my dad did to all 4 of us. I would, if they didn't make their beds up, I would yank sheets off the bed, move the mattress, take all the clothes out the dressers, throw them on the floor. You know, I was horrible. You know, one time my son got suspended for hitting a little boy at school, and I made him run him down the street, so I got sick of him running. You know, and it's just like, I did some very dramatic things to get their attention because I got tired of spanking them or whooping them or whatever. But it was uncalled for at the time. You know, my boys, you should know your kids. And had I not been still trying to process my trauma, I should have known that talking to them probably would have done just as much as me beating the hell out of them or, you know, punishing them in this way. And so by the time I realized this, they were teenagers. And in my oldest son, he resented me a lot for how I raised them. My youngest son, he's more empathetic or sympathetic to the things that I've gone through. And so, you know, he was just, you know, he's more so a mom. I'm so sorry that had to happen to you. I forgive you. And so I spent a lot of my days constantly apologizing to my sons, even though they're grown, you know, because it comes up a lot now. Like, Mama, you remember when you only let us eat bread and water? And I'm like,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so I had to come to grips and apologize and say, y'all, I was wrong. This is what I was dealing with. You know, I just was trying to do the best I can with what I knew at that time.
So they have a lot of psychological, I would say, damage from all of this. And did your children struggle with a lot of depression or, you know, suicidal thoughts? Well,
my oldest son, he did, and it was now I realize it was a mixture of his dad not being in his life, and also the things that I was putting him through at home. And so, you know, like I said, that's why 10 years old I had him in counseling, which he didn't want to do. He wasn't really vocal about what he was dealing with. He couldn't articulate it at that age. And the older he got, the more he would act out. The more, you know, taller he got, the more he felt like, you know, if I tried to slap him, he would grab my hand. If I tried to chase him, he would, you know, run. You know, knowing he's stronger than me by now. And so I later realized that I was the cause of some of their trauma, in addition to their dad being absent, in addition to me marrying, you know, for the second time. So it was a lot that I felt bad for later.
So all this time you're angry and you're in the church. You're unhealed and you're in the church.
Yeah, I would say angry because I'm not like an angry person, but I would definitely say unhealed, unprocessed trauma.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm in the church. And so church was my coping mechanism. And I realized that when, you know, my sons would say, my youngest son came to me one day after church and he said, Mom, when you're at church, you're so happy. You know, you're energetic, like I always am. 95% of the time, he said, when you come home, you're so mean. And that right there let me know I got to be the way I am 24/7.
Right.
But it was because I wasn't happy at home.
You wasn't happy. Yeah.
I was frustrated that financially I was struggling, you know, washing our clothes with dishwashing liquid, moving, trying to figure out why my credit is the way it is, because, you know, I had everything in my name out of that first marriage and out of the second marriage. And so I'm just I'm upset that life is happening to me when I know deep down inside I got a good heart and I'm just here trying to help people, but the situations are just not lining up for me.
So, and this is what and this is why it's, you know, people when they go to church, we all can be very religious, but that
Yes.
still doesn't mean the church is within us, because we can go to a church all the time, Bible study. We can go to Sunday school. We can go to every Sunday service from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, 7 o'clock, but there's no transformation on the inside.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now we're going to get to that transformation, because you're still transforming. We're all transforming at different, I would say, speed. Okay. But you are transforming now. I want you to go back to that second marriage. So when your kids were, I would say maybe 10 or preteens, when did you get married? Did you get married around their teenage age,
Yeah.
or okay? So
Yeah, I
can you
got
take me
married
to that?
again in 2015, met a guy in, well, actually 2014. I met a guy in 2013. So at that time, my boys were like 11 and 12. So they got preteens. And I hope he's watching, because he know I like to tell the truth too. He fell in love with me. I didn't fall in love with him. My sons were crazy about him because he had children that they were around the same age. He was a football coach. My boys played football. His sons played football. And so they meshed. And this is where I didn't realize how to separate ministry from my feelings.
Right.
So in my mind, because my sons, because at this point I'm trying to do everything I can to fill this gap, this void, because I had my dad in my life, and I'm like, I know how important that is. Now I'm trying to fill this void in my son's life. And so because they fell in love with this guy, and they was like, Mom, but he treats you good, you should marry him. And he wanted to marry me. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take one for the team. And I'm gonna marry him, so you guys can have somebody at home that y'all can call dad. So when you're going through puberty, you can talk to him about it and not me. And then I saw the struggle that even his kids were going through. We end up having custody of 3 of his kids. He had a little girl that was 9 at the time, and two brothers. And to be honest, I saw myself in her, being left at home alone with different family members, being put in different people's, houses. And it's like, you don't know what's going on with your daughter.
Right.
And so this is where I feel like I had to minister. I need to go and save somebody because I'm a fixer, because I need to help everybody. When I should have just said, yeah, I just need to let you do what you do. I'm going to be your friend. If you want to pick the boys up, take them to football practice, we can do that. But I never should have gotten married.
Okay. But when you did get married, what was some of the challenges that you experienced in the second marriage?
My second husband was a great guy. I mean, he was crazy about me. He was a good person. He was funny and fun to be around, but because I wasn't attracted to him, I wasn't in love with him. I loved him, for who he was. It was financially challenging because when we first met, of course, he had 4 of the kids, and he was struggling, on child support for 4 kids, and then us, fighting to get custody of 3 of his kids, getting a house built. And so all of that fell back on me financially. And so we had financial struggles. I was emotionally detached because I just had blinders on. Like, let me just get through this marriage until my sons graduate from high school, and then it's over. That was my plan. And God said, oh, okay, you think you're going to last that long? You really think I'm gonna allow this that I didn't ordain to continue until you ready? And so 5 years into that marriage, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. It was too much drama. He had an ex-wife that was just, oh my God, it was so dramatic. And I was really trying to just help his kids while still being there to help my 2. And it was just too much stuff going on that just pulled at me. And I had to let that marriage go.
So in all of this, you were still, I would say, communicating or having a relationship with God?
Yes.
Would you say it was a close relationship? You just want to do your own thing, or how was your spirituality at that time?
Man, me and God, we've been rocking for a while.
Mhm.
God was my only source of foundation and strength to keep moving. So my boys and I, and even in my second marriage, very heavily involved in church. All the kids, we was at Bible study every week. Actually, my sons ran sound for the church, sound and
Mhm.
video and audio for the church. And they were probably at this time 13, 14, 14, 15. And so, I would do like little daily bread lessons when church was over. I would make sure the kids
Mhm.
knew the 10 Commandments, little things that my dad would teach us. If I said, hey, who is Sarah and Abraham? Do you know about that story? Do you know about Noah? Do you know about Job? And so we were all very heavily involved in, I would say, the attendance of church.
Right.
I feel like my spiritual level increased because I was unhappy. So I remember
Mhm.
during the time that I was married, that's when the movie The War Room came out. And I was
Yes. Okay.
seeking God just for some type of, God, I need a rainbow. Because right now it has just been storming in my life for so long. And so I got closer to God, being involved with the women's ministry at the church that I was a member of, having a prayer closet at my house, going in there in the mornings, in the evenings, and just like, God, you've got to help me. Like I got
Mhm.
prayers where I was begging God, can you just let me like him like I like my first husband? Because I
Mhm.
really wanted to be this person that I feel like God wanted me to be, but I just didn't feel it. But my prayer life and my spiritual life was grounded.
Okay. So, do you feel like part of that was, with your second husband, you weren't healed from the first marriage?
Oh yes.
And that's why you could not connect maybe emotionally to this man.
I didn't want to be married the second time.
Mm, okay.
I remember at the proposal, I was like, I ain't gonna do it. That was back when do it for the vine was a cliche, a thing that was out. And I was
Mhm.
like, I was around all these family, all these friends at this restaurant. And I was like, oh, I cannot embarrass him like this.
Right.
But I did not want to get married.
Right.
I
Okay.
didn't want to get married to the degree that I literally told him, you don't have to buy me a ring. Whatever
Mhm.
engagement ring that he had bought, I was like, I'll wear that. I joke now, but I wore a black dress
What?
to get at the ceremony. We got married on Christmas Day at my dad's church, Christmas morning, because my dad was already having, like, I didn't want to spend any money
Uh-huh.
because I had taken my life savings in my first marriage and I paid for everything, $10,000
Mhm.
of my money that I had saved up from internships and being young. And so my second marriage, I didn't want to get married. I did not want any parts of being locked up again.
Mhm. It was just something that you were
But
doing.
that's what happens when you love your
Mhm.
kids more than yourself.
Okay. So you did it for your children because they needed a father and
Yeah.
they really liked and appreciate who he was. Okay. So after that marriage was basically it was failing from the beginning because
Yeah.
you didn't love him and you didn't want to be with him. When it was like, I'm done with this marriage, how did this affect your children?
So like I said, I thought I was doing it for the kids.
Mhm.
My youngest son was like, he didn't care which way or the other, because the worst thing I think I've done is talk to my kids about way too much of my personal life while they were growing up. And that was
Okay.
me just trying to be transparent.
Mhm.
Um, so that they wouldn't make the same mistakes I made. And so my son saw me date a lot of guys in between, their dad and the second guy. But that was just my coping. Some people drink, some people smoke,
Right.
some people shop, some people eat. Lori had to have a man. That was my coping. I needed somebody from the opposite sex that I connected with, that I felt attracted to. And so that was my high, so to speak. And so my oldest son took it very hard. I
Mhm.
remember I remember the day, and so it ended up happening that my second husband ended up cheating on me with his baby mama. and lied about it. And I found out about it because she emailed me with all the evidence. And it broke my heart. So even though I wasn't in love with him, it broke my heart because he was my best friend. Like, we had a great friendship. I feel like our friendship was more important than the marriage, because that was like my boy, and that's how I saw him. Not my boy, but that was just like, man, that's my dude.
Right.
And so he was just a really, really good friend. So when I found out that he was cheating, I'm like, dude, you know what I went through with the first one. Like, I told you everything. So I really felt, God, I like bamboozled. I'm like deceived. But my oldest son, he took it the worst because he was really close to him. He looked up to him because he was a good dad. Like I said, we had custody of his kids for 3 years. He was very involved, parent, cooked, a firefighter, things like that. And so my youngest son was like, I'm over it. I don't have a feeling one way or the other. I'm not attached to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel like he was just numb because he was extremely hurt, or
I think he was filling the void of his biological dad. I think he just wanted somebody that was real and that was going to be there consistently, which is what my dad has been to my sons all of their lives, is that rock, that grandpa, for them.
So after, look, it's not gonna work. You gonna go your way, I'm gonna go mine. And when you did that, tell me what happens next after you decided, hey, it's over and done.
Oh man. So here's the second time that I'm building a house. This is what I was talking about in the women's finish. It's like, I prayed for this house to get built.
Right.
We didn't have any credit. He didn't have any money to put down. I had saved up $15,000. And so after he ended up, moving out, I'm like, God, I feel like the Diary of a Mad Black Woman. Every room in this house reminds me of something negative. And so here I am sitting in a 5-bedroom, 3 full bath, 3,500 square foot house with just me and 2 sons. And I hated it because I was like, I built this for them. They didn't appreciate me. They lied on me, And so it's just like, so I put the house up for sale. This was like September 2018, and it would not sell. And I went to church one day, and God said, when you get home, take that for sale sign out their yard. And I had packed up half of the house. I had like my whole hearth room full of boxes. I was like, God gonna move. He gonna sell this house for me because I asked him, and I had already started packing. House didn't sell. And so God said, I'm going to repurpose this house for my glory. I didn't know what that meant at the time. Now, a couple years before that, I got divorced with the second one. I had started a mentoring program for girls called the Butterfly Effect. And we were meeting at different community centers in the Memphis area. And, it was just hard trying to get a consistent place to meet. And so my home became our grounds, from 2018 until I sold the house eventually in 2020 in the middle of COVID. That was our meeting spot. And so God did honor and repurpose, the physical building, because I felt like I've lost the income. My boys were in private school. For 6 years, I put them through private school. I wasn't making the kind of money that could afford private school, but thank God for scholarships. Right. And so it was definitely a test of my faith and God's favor, where God said, I see you. I hear the cries. I know what you've been through. I got you. And that's when I felt like my personal relationship with God, it was like nothing you could tell me God can't do for me. That's
so it happened. You saw God a little bit more, and you became more personal. You became more personal with God after the second divorce. And tell me a little bit about your organization, what you do for young girls.
So this was the program I had back in Memphis. It's not active now as I would love it to be, but it was for young ladies ages 9 to 30. And we started up in 2016 we had 50 young ladies all across the Memphis area. I partnered with the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. They provided mentors to the program. And I would meet with the young ladies once a month. But the good part of having my own program was I didn't have to deal with the red tape of school systems. And so I could pick the young girls up. I had sleepovers for Christmas. We did Christmas parties. We did community service projects. We did 5K, runs and work volunteer with the, water stations for the Chick-fil-A and St. Jude. We would go to church together. We did all kind of stuff for those 5 years. And I would have speakers to come in on a monthly basis. I would do workshops with the girls about time management, self-esteem, everything that I had a struggle with from my college years through that first marriage. It was things that God had planted to say, this is why I'm using you. You have a mouthpiece. You're going to help so many young ladies. And it was really my dad who shared with me years before everything that I was going through. He was like, Lori, this ain't got nothing to do with you. And I'm like, what you mean this ain't got nothing to do with me? It's happening to me. He was like, this has nothing to do with you. This is so that you can help somebody else. And I didn't understand it, in my 20s. But as I started working with these young ladies and I'm seeing them deal with abusive relationships, I'm seeing them deal with molestation, rape, self-esteem, not their father not being in their lives. Like I'm seeing everything play back. It's like deja vu. And I'm like, aha, God, I get it. However you're going to use me, I'm a vessel. And so the mentoring program was really where my calling from all the drama that I was in years before is where it seeped in and God put me back into purpose.
Okay. And Lori, you were telling me earlier about how your dad would tell you how you're the most beautiful girl in the world. And you had some type of self-esteem, because you had to have some type of confidence. Because to me, you seem very confident and that you can go up and talk to anybody, very gregarious, type of personality. But did you have a lot of insecurities, even though, you were happy with how you looked and the attention you got? Sometimes it was too much attention. Did you ever have a lot of insecurities?
No, I just felt like my physical appearance was a blessing and a curse. Now I've had some guys in the past that tell me I wasn't their preference, and that kind of hit me like, okay,
like what?
I mean, in 8th grade, I was a size 12, so I've always been thick. Yes, I've never been a skinny person. I've always been.
Know that's right.
One of the biggest, maybe the only insecurity I had growing up was like I was always the tallest, and I was really skinny. But by the time I got to 4th, 5th grade, I had hips and booty, and and so I prided myself humbly that, oh, okay, I'm nice looking, And so, but I didn't have insecurities like self-esteem issues, and then part of that is my dad, but it's also God, because I later learned, man, everybody got stretch marks. Everybody got cellulite.
Exactly.
I don't like my calf muscles, but you know what? Somebody else don't like their nose. So when I realized that there's something that everybody don't like about their physical appearance, I was like, girl, you be all right. Get in the mirror and do some affirmations. Yeah.
Right. Well, with you starting I would say a youth group for girls and encouraging them and empowering them to be better, did you have a lot of issues with women because of your confidence and the attention that you got, growing up?
Yes, that was part of my saying that light attracts bugs. It illuminates darkness, but at the same time, you got to be careful of the light that you shine because it will attract bugs.
Yes,
it's like when mama say, cut that light off while you're going outside so them bugs don't come in my house.
Right.
And so it did because one thing because like I said, I'm a giving person. I naturally just have a good heart, and I know that. It's not anything cocky or anything like that. It's if you need $100, I'm finna call 10 people, get $10. And so a lot of people feel like I had an underlying motive, like, why she's so nice? Why we at the dinner and she paying for everybody food? What's she trying to do? And then as I had my mentoring program, the news came out. We had a documentary done by the Orpheum Theater. And so I realized that people was trying to associate themselves with the program just to be in the picture. They didn't really want to help. I had a passion for these girls because I have been where they are. And so I lost friendships. I lost some family folks who was like, oh, she thinks she all that. No, I don't, man. I'm just trying to help somebody get through tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people didn't understand my heart and my passion and the vision that God had given me. And so it did ruffle a lot of feathers. I lost some, I mean, I cried. It was days I would have to call my mom. I mean, I quit the program every year in my mind. And I would tell them like, oh, I can't do this no more. It's just too much, but I realized when them girls come back and say, Miss Laura, if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for that phone call, if it wasn't for you showing up at my school, if it wasn't for me being at your house, like, I'm like, okay, God, I see it. If I can help one, mission complete.
That is something else, man. I'm really liking that. That's a blessing that you had that type of heart. And the reason why maybe I could relate to you, because I feel like people have misunderstood you and judged you for that. And sometimes when it's about how you look or how much attention you get, if you have a lot of charisma and people are drawn to you, all types of people get a little jealous of that.
Yeah.
They get a little envious of that, and they think you're fake, and they think that, oh, she just wants all this attention. I always say you can't help how God made you.
Yes.
And I really feel like when I see you, I feel like how people have done me. I feel like you've been misunderstood a lot of times.
Yes. And that's ironic you say that. I remember going to an altar one day years ago, and the prophetess put her hand on my heart and she said, you've been misunderstood so many times.
Yes.
And I just broke down crying. I'll never forget that. And I said, you just don't understand how, because these girls, I would go to schools and I would speak at schools and I would speak at graduations at high schools and colleges. And after I get through speaking, because I'm going to keep it real, I'm going to tell y'all all my business where there was no tea out there for you to sip on about me. I've already put it out there.
You've already put it out.
So after I would speak, the young ladies would just gravitate to me. And I would give them my phone number, connect with them, all this stuff. I just wanted to help them. And, I had parents like, why they always trying to get up on you? Why they always calling you? I told them the same thing you told them. I'm like, it's got to come from a different source. I don't have a dog in the fight. I have nothing invested here. So of course they're going to listen to me. They think you trying to keep them from having fun. And so it was very challenging because I knew where I stood, mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And it was always misunderstood that she just trying to keep the limelight. And I'm like, man, if I could get away from this calling, I would. But that ain't what God ordained.
Right. So you were doing that program. You were helping young girls. How did you get to Dallas?
Whew. You got to be careful what you speak. So, in my mind and years before, I literally did this for work where I had text messages back from 2015, 2016, where I was saying, man, when my boys graduate, I'm moving. I got to get out of Memphis. It's so much hurt here. Everything that has gone wrong in my life has gone wrong here. And so I literally, so my sister, my brother has been in Dallas for 10 years, him and his wife. My sister has been here 7 years, her and her husband. And so, the older that my boys got, once I divorced, I was coming down here visiting. And I just love the area. I love the people. I love that there's always something positive to do and just meet people. And and I kept saying, man, when they graduate, I'm moving. And the closer that I got to May of 2021, I started looking for apartments early on, and I come down here and I would stay a month and leave my boys in Memphis. Like, don't y'all tear up the house, do what you're supposed to do. God will bless you if you do. And so I took the leap of faith and moved. And it was like in the middle of COVID. So I've been in Dallas since June of 2021. And like I said, I have an oldest son. He is at his senior year at Rice University in Houston.
Okay.
My youngest son, Tomas, he's at Rice in Houston. My oldest son is now in the Air Force. He was in college, but then of course he got my little grandbaby on the way, so he had to take a detour. But he's in the Air Force, and so I've been here. Even with them, it's like I got rid of them, excited to be an empty nester, and then 1 year later they come back because the son came back with his wife and the grandbaby, and so they were all living with me. But now they're back out the house. And so that's how I got here to Dallas. I love it. I wish I would have moved 15 years ago.
15 years ago. Well, this was the time you were supposed to be here. You know?
I believe that.
Uh-huh. So what are you doing now in Dallas? Are you still mentoring young girls, or tell me a little bit about that? What you doing now?
So now my sister and I and another young lady at our church, Mount Rose, we started a ministry for young ladies because we saw, the disconnect of young ladies 18 to like 30-ish, around that age where you're grown enough to do what you want,
Right.
but you're still young enough to not make the right decisions.
Exactly.
And so we started a program called Jewels. It's joyful, empowered ladies embracing love and sisterhood. And so we're trying to meet with the young ladies, once a month, just to give them some life lessons, just make a friendship, a sisterhood, and just kind of share with them, from a biblical perspective, things that they should know and just how to navigate when life gets really hard, and then how to celebrate the small wins. So we're doing that. In addition to that, I'm a full-time work from home. You guys can see my office.
Yeah.
So this is where I spend, my 9 to 5. And outside of that, I'm working out. I'm in a couple of Jeep clubs, and I'm very, very big on having a social life. So, I connect with a lot of women through Facebook, different, ladies organizations, and I'll go out and I'm gonna talk to anybody because you just never know where the next step will lead you in that friendship or that associate. So I'm very big on meeting people, new people. And then apart from that, my new guy that I have now, which was like a woof, when it's next one, Lord.
Okay.
But I was done. After you've been married twice and you hadn't even got to the age of 40 and you divorced, it's like, yeah, that ain't for me.
Yeah.
I would never be my mom and dad. They've been together since they were 12 and 14.
Wow.
And I had given up on love and just like, okay, God, this is just maybe what you want from me, that I'm just going to be single with a story. And so right now, God said, nope.
So tell me, look, I'm nosy. So I want you to tell me about this Prince Charming. How did he, I would say, melt the Ice Queen's heart? He showed you that he's not like one of those. Like, what was it that made you like, I got to give this guy a chance?
Oh man, being bored. I'm just gonna be honest.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I feel like, okay, I'm in Dallas. It's a new city. It's a lot of people here. From all walks of life. I'm sure it won't be hard for me to, date. That's what I'm looking, eventually for, just to date. And I was here maybe a year and nothing. And I was like, are they scared to approach me? Like, what's going on? But I met him. Ironically, we have a lot of mutual friends because we both went to Jackson State, but he's a little bit older and seasoned than I am.
Yeah.
So, by the time I was getting to Jackson State, he was leaving. But I remember seeing him vaguely, at homecomings and things like that. And so a couple of years ago, I went to a Miami Jackson State game. They were playing FAMU, and I was supposed to be down there meeting another guy that I had met at Essence Festival and got stood up. And this is where it's very humbling, because I was like, guys, ghost people now? They just don't show up, don't call back, just call you a couple times and then don't call you no more. It's like, wow, this is very humbling from what I would say I was used to. But I met him, and here's another thing. So I'm a very visual person, because like I said, being with a guy was my coping mechanism. And of course, it's like a woman that loves to shop. You look amazing right now, Selena. And so I already know, yes, ma'am, baby, I already know I can go shopping with you.
Yeah, I love to shop.
You and I gonna pick out the top dollar. We gonna be in that dressing room twirling, because I like to look good too.
Yes,
well,
you do.
Token, I like my man looking good.
I know you're right.
I like to look and be like, oh, I can't wait to just hug him.
I know you're right.
And so, and I just have to be honest, when I met my boyfriend now, I was like, he ain't for me.
Right. He's
I
the
was like, he
total
looked like an
opposite.
old man, you know. He had
Uh-huh.
this beard that reminded me of my dad and this bald head. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm a pass. But he was persistent. Um, and, you know, like I said, we met in Miami, ended up hanging out, you know, because I was there an extra day because I was supposed to be with somebody else who stood me up. And
Mhm.
so he and I ended up hanging out. And when I came back, you know, I realized he was like, "Oh yeah, I live in Dallas too." And I'm like, "Really?" And
Mm.
so he ended up, you know, asking me out on a date. Took me to see the Temptations. Brought me this big bouquet of flowers, which I had really
Aw.
never had done. And I was like, "Oh, he's a sweetheart." You know,
Yeah.
you know, good conversation. Um, and then one trying to have sex with me, and I was like, "Doggone it, you don't want like you're a man, man."
Yeah, for real.
Because here's the trauma talking.
Mhm.
The old Lori equated love to a man want to have sex with you because that's what all
Mhm.
my molesters and my rapists and all these other men who was interested in me, they just saw me as a sex object.
Yes.
So growing up, that's how I eventually sometimes saw myself until I got out of that
Mhm.
mindset. But yeah, so we have been pretty much together ever since that first date.
Wow.
Yes. So he treats me like a queen. And don't get it twisted. He had his days where I'd be like, I pack. I'm used to moving.
Right.
But I'm in therapy for that.
Right. Did your
So,
children ever get therapy? Well, I know you said one of the sons you said went to you may go to counseling. Are they currently in therapy or not?
yeah, with my son that's in the military, he's been through, you know, therapy sessions. We
Mhm.
actually did family counseling back when they were like 10 and 11, just
Mhm.
to navigate through, you know, that first divorce. And I've been pushing them. You know, it's hard to push kids past 18 to do anything you want them to do.
Right.
But even my younger son that's in college, I told him, I was like, dude, I have EAP. You can get your free sessions in through our insurance. You know, I'm pushing him to get therapy because my sister is a therapist and a
Okay.
counselor. And so she has been my counselor for the past 20 years, 20
Uh-huh.
plus years. She's really the reason why I started to see myself. And
Oh.
because even though she's my best friend, she had no problem telling me you wrong. You shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have did that to him. You
Mhm.
know, you need to watch your tone. That delivery was horrible. And so my sister has been my saving grace for 20 some
Mm.
years. Yes, she has been my lifeline, my therapist, my sounding board, the little man over here on your shoulder. Like she's been it all. And
Wow.
she pushed me this year. She said, my plate is full. You need to go get you somebody that's documented therapist because you
Mhm.
know I can still listen. But and so I enrolled and I've been doing, you know, regular therapy through my job since July of this year and just trying to
Wow.
still navigate through some of that trauma triggers that I haven't processed or I haven't or I don't you don't think that you're the way that you are because of something that's happened.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm. How do you see yourself in the next year? Do you see yourself forgiving yourself for what you're, having the abortion? Do you see yourself married? I want to know where you see yourself in the next year, Lori.
You know, I told myself after that second divorce, I'm not doing this again. But this guy has changed my mind, or is changing my mind. I don't want to be the lonely person with 50,000 cats.
I know you're
I
right.
love I love companionship and I
Right.
love to talk and I love to do life. You know, I spent a lot of my single mom years hanging with women and doing the single mom stuff. And it's like
Mhm.
I want to be booed up. So the next year, I hope that he better put a ring on it.
I know. I know you're right. Yes. Yeah.
But I do see myself, healed. The only reason why the abortion still comes to mind is just out of regret.
Hmm.
I do believe that because God has forgiven me, I've forgiven myself. It's just still like, ugh,
It's a
what if?
process. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so in the next year, of course, my career is the good thing is I don't have a lot of stress on my job. So my personal life is where I put a lot of my focus and attention.
Hmm.
And so I'm just here, just trying to make new friends and seeing what path God wants me on. Who does he want me to meet? Who do he want me to minister to or inspire or encourage, now with the new things, the new testimonies that he's given me.
What about your ministry with the young ladies? How do you see that progressing?
I'm praying that it grows. All the young ladies, or at the women's ministry workshop that you came to, I looked in that crowd. It was 100 some ladies there, and they were, my age and up. And I'm really like, where are my 35 and under? Where are my women where I know life is hitting you? And you probably don't have that mom, daughter, or sister relationship to really talk through it. And I think about everything that I've gone through. And so, I'm really pushing. I actually had texted a young lady that we work with at the church. It's like, hey, we need to meet. We need to connect with these young ladies. I see them in church, but it's like they just want to come and go. And then you have so many distractions here in the Dallas area, distractions that I didn't have when I was in my 20s and 30s. The most we could do in Memphis is go to the mall, go to the movies, or go skating. Now you got brunches, you got workout, you got, cardio classes on a Sunday. You got all these places that people can go to, anytime they get ready. And I think that it's a distraction from, I wouldn't say building true sisterhood, but it's a distraction from people just being active in church, connecting with other people. And so that's my goal, is to find those young ladies and to really just pour into them as much as I can. And then, whatever I get back from them, because I think, it goes both ways.
Why do you think it's such a big disconnect with women, especially in the church? A lot of times people in the church, especially women in the church, are very cliquish. Why do you feel that that is happening, or we're disconnected? Because I'm a young lady. I've always looked up to older women, for advice. Even though I have my sisters, I have my aunties and grandmother and things like that, I always look to older women, and I see that there is a disconnect going on. I see that some older women are trying to compete with younger women. You know what I'm saying? Instead of them trying to, maybe minister or guide us in the right direction. So I like the fact that you have that for young women, or you're reaching out to women, younger women like me, that actually want to do the right thing, actually want to learn how to be more like a lady. You know what I'm saying? So, I want to know, in your opinion, why is it so hard to deal with women, and especially in the church?
I've seen there's a lot of women 50, 60, 70 with unprocessed trauma.
Yes.
And they feel like they're in competition mode because they've been competing with their sisters since the 70s. And so you got to think, I was born in the 70s, but I was raised in the 80s. And so when I look at people that's older than me, there's competition. I see it in my family. My mama, because she's always been married, is in competition with a sister who's never been married. And it's just like, she's not in competition, but they look at her differently, instead of just building that bond, instead of just, let's cut the wall down. And so I feel like now in church, you have so many older women who have not processed their trauma. They haven't processed why, mama married twice, or mama was working 3 jobs, or, their stepdad did this. And so it's like, I got to hold this to me because I can't let nobody know that I'm bruised, I'm broken. And so there's no vulnerability. Don't nobody want to be honest. Nobody wants to say, hey, I am struggling with depression. I have anxiety that keeps me up at night. Nobody wants to be honest because they want to put on this front that they got it all together. And so until we have women like you, like me, who want to put all the cards on the table face up and say, this is what I have struggled with. I've struggled with it from this age to this. This is what I did. This is what I tried to do that didn't work. Until we get to that place, there's going to always be disconnect. And so that's why I feel like one thing that I've seen, like in my mentoring program and when I would go speak at places, once, because you can't hide stuff a lot from teenagers or young people.
Right. They can see right through
the fakeness.
Right.
So when I would go speak and they would hear the sincerity and the rawness and the realness in me and me sharing my own stuff, They was like, I can take down my hands and I can let it all out. Like I remember I had this little thing with the girls where I call this session drop the towel. And so one weekend I had all the girls in my house and I had this wraparound shower. So it's like 2 doors, 2 different head sprayers. And so it's like 15, 20 of us. And I'm like, y'all, we got to get ready to go to church. I got 2 sinks. Somebody can use the guest bathroom. And so all the girls in there want to keep their towel on. I'm like, y'all, we got the same thing. Some of them big, some of them medium, some of them small. Who cares? God made us. And so I had to tell them, y'all, drop the towel. Let's get ready. You doing too much. You can't even put your eyeliner on because you're trying to hold this little knot over here to keep this towel from falling because you're ashamed. And until we drop the towel and let what's going on with us, we're not going to reach them.
Exactly.
And that's where the disconnect is.
You know, and that's funny that you said that because at the women's conference, you know, there's all types of women there. Like you said, some people with unchecked stuff, some people are judgmental, some, you know, we all got something going on, right? And like I said, it just takes a simple conversation. Somebody got to, you know, knock down the wall. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it may be you, it may be me, to be like, hey, how you doing? I would like to introduce myself or whatever. And I was at a table. You know, and I'm not going to say the person's name. A very nice older lady. She's like, yeah, you kind of remind me of my daughter. And we were talking. I was just giving her my perspective on a lot of things that I see. And she said, wow. She said, you know what? I gotta just be honest with you. I said, what? You know, I'm thinking to myself, what the hell she gonna say to me? That's what I'm thinking, you know, like what the hell she gonna say to me? She said, you are not just a pretty face like I thought. It's more to you. And that's one of the things I was talking about, how people can misunderstand you. They judge you by maybe how you look, how maybe you come across, without actually having a conversation with you. And she said, I'm so glad that I had a conversation with you. Because it's a lot more than meets the eye. And I was so thankful for her being honest with me. And just because like a friend of mine saying, see, she was honest with you. And that's probably how a lot of people may view you. But the fact that she took the time to have a conversation with you, she knew that it was more to you than that.
That's one thing that I even said in my talk that Saturday. You know, I blew it off, but I meant what I said, that I had been at that church for 3.5 years and don't know none of them ladies. No more than my sister and the other young lady. You know, I have like maybe 2 or 3 that, you know, because we sit in the same section to hug me, and they're really good, you know, Christian ladies. You know, we talk outside of church or whatever, but hundreds of ladies, and I know maybe 5, and I've been there for 3.5 years. Now I'm not in the choir. I'm not, you know, on no ministry, you know, because I did all that in my pre-K all them years. And so I just want to like, come see. But it's ironic how once your face gets associated to a flyer, now people want to speak to you. And so I had a serious problem with getting friend requests on Facebook. And I'm not gonna say I had a serious problem with it, because I get it. You know, oh, now I'm not saying I'm somebody, but it's like, oh, okay, let me befriend her. And it's like, why wasn't that done before? Because when I'm at church, I speak to everybody. But it was definitely some cliquish, some people that are passed right by you, don't want to speak and see you every Sunday.
Wow, that's true. That's
because they don't know you, and there is no, I want to get to know you. You know, and so I'm really working. That's my ultimate goal, is let's break down these walls, ladies. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Your story may be able to help somebody else. And then what they've gone through or what they've overcome may just help you, or not only you, your daughter, your niece, you know, your granddaughter. And so if we can just take off the blinders that makeup matters. You know, what kind of earrings you got on matter. Like what kind of car, it don't matter. Look, if you read Ecclesiastes, it says all this stuff is meaningless.
It is.
it's just here for us to enjoy in this moment. But then what? What
Mhm.
about your soul? What about your heart? And so I
Mhm.
really have a passion for women and youth and young ladies and really getting to know people, because people are out here struggling
Mhm. And they're
with just
hurting.
waking up and going to bed.
I know you're right.
So
Mhm. But when people are not transparent, that's when they become tormented because they don't want to break down their walls.
yeah.
They don't want to be transparent to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the problem is. And I'm so glad that you listened to your sister and that you wasn't a typical angry Black woman.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That you decided, I don't want to be this way. God help me, change me, make me into the person that I need to be. And your sister held you accountable so you
She
couldn't
did.
make excuses for yourself. So you couldn't be delusional about your
Yes.
issues. And that is, see, these are the type of women I like talking to. I
Yeah.
like talking to women like you and other women that I've met that don't make excuses for bad behavior. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
We all have had situations that have happened to us that, can form the way we see things and do things in life. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean we have to make excuses to stay there.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that about you, Lori. I really do. Shout out to your sister. And I believe I met her because she liked my
Yes.
nails and I liked hers. Um, so
That's a
shout out.
Shay.
Yes, shout out to your sister for being your saving grace, because we just need one person to be our saving grace sometimes.
Yes.
One
Yes.
person that sees us and patient with us. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
And the
So,
patience, because when you're going through things, I'm helping my daughter-in-law because she's
mhm,
navigating through things as a new mom. And
mhm,
sometimes I have to hear the same traumatic stories over every day, reliving this. And I just be like, girl, let's just move on. But then I have to take myself back to my 23-year-old self and say, you talked about it. You kept
mhm,
replaying it over and over again. You want to keep drilling into it. What happened? Why did it happen? And my sister has just been, I don't care how many times, she called me there and she was like, can just get some off my chest. And that's just how we talk. And
mhm,
I love that about her because she holds me accountable. And I think that's the issue with when you talk about, I dealt with all this trauma, but I was still in church. And how church can be a routine is because you don't have accountability. And that's like one of the things I was sharing in my message the other day was,
mhm,
talking about the sword of the spirit. The first thing is you got to be able to share it to apply it. If we just come to church and we hear the word and then we just like, oh, what's preacher preach about? I don't know, Jesus. Sound like he put him on the cross, gave him some power. But it's like,
right.
what did you learn that
But
you can apply until you get to church the next Sunday? And so I'm really
exactly.
big on, let's talk about it. Let's open up. Let's share what nuggets did you get.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, if you don't have an accountability partner, it just goes in one ear and out the other, and you still have that same repetitive behavior.
Exactly, Lord. And that's what I was saying the other day. I don't know if you've been watching me, but I've had a lot of crazy people coming at me on this YouTube streets. And I had to get some people around me, some accountability partners. I say a team to keep
Yeah.
me grounded. Because some days when I'm about to cuss beep out, I need to be able to call so and so sometimes or text them and
Mhm.
be like, I'm gonna need you to pray for me. I'm gonna need you to talk me down off of wanting to act a fool today.
Yes.
And it's amazing how I feel like God had put people around me to be like, no, Selena, you better than that. Don't keep
Mhm.
doing it. You know, you're not made like that. Don't go there. God has something bigger for you. You got a bigger purpose than just what you see
Yes.
right now. And so when I have that, I know that God is working for my good.
Yes. Because a
So and
lot
I
of
say the
women,
same to you.
they don't have that because
Right.
they just want to hear what's gonna make them feel good.
What
They
exactly. And
want a
everything
cheerleader.
exactly. Everything ain't gonna make you feel good. And I'm gonna say
Yes.
ain't. That's improper English because a lot of the times you need to know you got a bad attitude or you're doing too much or
Mhm.
you was wrong. No way how you slice it and dice it, you were
Yeah.
wrong. And so when we have those people around us that is real people, I'm telling you, be grateful
Mm-hmm.
and actually appreciate what they contribute to your
Yes.
life,
Yes.
and so I say shout out to your sister. I am so thankful that you are not a 40-something-year-old woman around here acting a fool. You are progressing, you're growing in life, and you are holding yourself accountable. And
Yes,
shout
ma'am.
out to you.
Thank you
Shout out
so
to
much,
you.
Selena. Thank you so
Mhm.
much.
And like I said, we're going to end this. Do you have any last words that you would like to share with us before you leave?
I will say this. So I started this mantra years ago. I did a talk at a church, and just out of that, this theme, "Be the One," came out
Mhm.
of it. And I have it. Some people don't believe in tattoos. I don't
Uh-huh.
care. Whatever. It's a reminder for me.
You from Memphis, girl. You hood to, what you
Yeah.
said, hood to
Uh,
holy.
half holy, half hood. Be the one.
Right.
And so, out of that speech, I have a T-shirt line that says "Be the One." I like to wear it.
Uh-huh.
Because you hear a lot of people say, "Man, somebody should have did this," or "This little girl over here, she ain't got on the right thing." Somebody need
Uh-huh.
to tell her about her. And it's always somebody shoulda, woulda, coulda, instead of that person, instead of you literally being the one for whoever.
Right.
I literally will go to the grocery store just looking for somebody groceries to pay for, looking for somebody to bless. I put money aside every month to help my family when they get into need, so I can throw $200, $300, $400 at them. And so I just want to leave the audience with this: be the one for somebody. Don't just sit back. The Bible says that if it's in your power to give, and your brother or sister have need of it, give it. Whether that's some
Mhm.
clothes, some earrings, some furniture, a word of encouragement. You just
Mhm.
be the one to step up, because you just never know how you can make somebody's life totally different by you paying attention to that person. Because I can't tell you how many times I was doing all this stuff, felt like I was unseen,
Mhm.
like nobody was paying attention, until it was just like, what, God, you're using me in a place that I don't even know that you're using me. And so you just got to learn how to be the one for somebody else, because life ain't about you. It's like my favorite scripture: esteem others higher than yourself.
Mhm.
When I see people in the store, I'm like, oh my God, I love your glasses. I look for people to compliment. You don't know what kind of day these people are having. You don't know
Right.
how on the edge they are from committing suicide or wanting to not wake up the next day. And so if you
Exactly.
just be that encouraging word or that hug or that smile,
Mhm.
even if they know they already look good, tell them
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
I
that's what
hear
I'll
you.
leave you with. Just be the one for somebody.
Be the one for somebody. Well, you heard it, y'all. Look, I'm in my Texas accent, y'all. Y'all hear that, y'all? Y'all, listen, be the one for somebody. If it's nothing but an encouraging word, okay, if it's nothing but a smile, because some people have never been smiled to. I noticed
Mhm.
that when I noticed it's a janitor at my school that I work at, and he has some, seems like he has some mental issues, but I notice when I smile at him and I give him a conversation, it's like he lights up. You just
Yeah.
never know how you can bless people. It's not always monetary.
Right.
Sometimes it's just being seen. Somebody sees me for once.
Yes.
So shout out to you for that, because that's very good advice. And if more people would do that, it would be a better world.
Amen to that, sister.
It would be a better world. Shout out to Lori. Lori Lynn Love. 3 L's, honey. What's the L 3 times? Okay.
Yeah, they call me
So
Triple L.
triple L. And they call me triple S. So triple S and triple L is in the house.
I
So
love it.
yeah, I really appreciate you, Lori, so much. This was a blessing. I'm so glad that I came up to you and I broke down that wall, because I don't really like going up to people, to be honest with
Oh,
you.
wow.
So when I heard your testimony, besides, my friend that, one of my mentors that also spoke, I said, I gotta have her on my live, because people need to know, just because you in the church, that don't mean that you're a perfect person. We're
Yes.
all trying to do better. Well, I ain't gonna say all, but most of us are trying to
Yeah.
do better. Most
Mm-hmm.
of us have been through some things, and we're trying to live the best that we can. And when
Yes.
I heard your testimony, it was very real, authentic. You weren't trying to put on airs. You were just being who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why God uses you so, I would say a lot, because um you are who you are. You don't hide from your past. A lot of times people they be in church, they ain't gonna tell you I used to be a hoe. They ain't
Yep.
gonna tell you I had all these different babies by different men. They're not gonna tell you I used to be on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
No, there,
Yes.
people are not transparent. So when you find people that are actually transparent, you see real people that have real stories that come
Yes.
through that come through it, victorious. That is something to be applauded to
Thank you
me.
so much. Yes.
Okay. So shout out to Lori, guys. If you have missed this interview, please go back and look at the playback. I think it would be a blessing to those who are just anybody, a woman, a man, but especially a woman that has been through a lot of things. And she definitely will be a blessing to you. So if you just came in at the end tail of the interview, make sure you go and watch the playback. You will definitely be blessed. So, Lori, I appreciate you
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much for gracing me with your presence.
Thank you again. Because we both don't look like what we've been through.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Yes.
Amen. I know you're right. That is one of my favorite saying. I know you're right, because it's real. It's real.
Mhm.
People judge you, but they don't know your story.
Yes.
So, shout out to Lori. Guys, you have a wonderful, wonderful night. Lori, you're always welcome on my platform. When I do
Thank you
Sister
so
Talk,
much.
I'll reach out to you again. I'll love for you to come back up with some other women so we can talk about different issues that is going on in the
Okay.
world. So I'll let you know when that comes up. And tell your family, hey, sub up to me. For those who watched the interview, tell them sub up to
I will.
Selena. Okay. So and you are welcome anytime.
Thank you
Okay.
so much, Selena. I appreciate the opportunity for this platform. Thank you
All
so much.
right. Thank you so much.
All
If you
right.
would like to drop down, you're more than welcome. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, put her YouTube. I think she has I know she has one video up there. That is the conference that I went to, that I actually saw her speak. So thank you for putting that link. Yes, I believe that, yeah, that's her link. So you guys check that out so you can kind of see her testimony even more. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, Riza, I really enjoyed this very healthy conversation. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Cutting Edge. And if I didn't speak to you, I hope I typed to everyone. Thank you for coming. But if I didn't, charge it to my head and not my heart. Thank you so much for coming through and showing your support, whether it's monetary or it was just a like and a view or subscribing. So thank you so much. And shout out again to Lori Lynn Love. Check her out, y'all. Talk to you guys later. Bye. Selena.
It's a vibe, baby. Oak Cliff girl, can't make you change my world. Damn, you're so fine, girl. Oak Cliff girl, put them heels on and rule.
Welcome to Selena's Couch, where you are welcome to be free to be yourself. So you can lay your head on my couch, on my pillows.
It's all good, we can do whatever we wanna do now. I'm in my bag right now, and I got a feeling, babe. each other. With the lights on top of the covers, just me and you, babe. And I feel like you're my
Love you to Reese's Pieces.
Get you a word. Nana nana boo boo.